welcome back once again to the UnChristian podcast. My name is Ndumiso and I'm your host. As always, on this, if you have not joined the family, if not joined the community by subscribing, please do so. Click on the subscribe button, click on the notification bell so you don't miss out on anything. Share this podcast and share this content with someone that you know is going to benefit from it, is going to help them. By that way, you'll be helping us grow, you'll be helping us reach more people. And when that happens, we are able to bring you better content, better guests, and better programs on this network. Thank you so much. I'm so excited this morning. I've got someone that y'all know has been around in the creative industry, entertainment industry for a while. He's been grinding. He's a man of God. There's so much that we are going to talk about, so much that he does. I don't know where he gets his time and his ideas. He doesn't run out of things to do. You know him as Blaque Nubon. He is Mlungisi Ngubane, and hailing all the way from Tembisa and doing great things around the world through the internet and through the aspects of media. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise wherever you are.
Come on now.
Blaque Nubon is in the house.
So,
How you doing, bruh?
Good, man.
Great, bruh. Wow.
good,
Thank
good,
you for honoring me and being here.
Thanks for that intro, man.
Come on. I didn't say much. Hey, mama. Hey,
And you like went to government archives there.
Yeah.
Like,
I went to Home Affairs, bro. I was like, hey.
that's cool, man.
I was like, birth certificate.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate
man.
that.
Thank you so much for giving us your time here and just honoring me.
Yeah.
There's so much we're gonna get into and talk about. And I want to ask you a lot of questions, but the most important question I'm gonna ask you today is how are you doing? How are you, man? How are you?
Tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm tired,
Yeah.
man. Physically tired, but I think mentally, charged up. Emotionally, I'm probably average. Spiritually, craving to just have my imagination reawakened by the bigness of God.
Wow.
You know.
Wow.
So overall, that's where I'm at, man. We've been in a transition, and I think that's why I'm tired.
Yeah.
But overall, good. Yeah.
I get you. You have managed a number of transitions in your life.
Yeah.
What lessons have you picked up about transitions and navigating them well in your experience with the many that you have?
Yeah, I think probably with where I'm at now, and this might not apply to everybody, but I think what I've learned is there's probably two groups of people, and this I know is very like broad strokes, but the first group of people with transitions might need to learn that they're probably not the kind of person that commits to one thing. And maybe some people are saying that about you, and or maybe you realizing that now that you've transitioned so much that, man, probably the reason why I've been moving is that I lack commitment, you know. And I would say, man, that's something that you probably need to nip in the bud and make sure that you, not that kind of person.
Right.
But I think there's a second group of people which I think I fall into. We've been made to believe that we don't commit. And that's why we transition so much.
Sure.
But not realizing, and I've only realized this now, that it wasn't that I didn't have a lack of commitment, but all those other spaces that I was in, there were things that I needed to learn to get me to where I am now.
Right.
You know, and to be the kind of person that I am now. So parts of my personality, parts of my worldview, parts of how I think were formulated by all those transitions. If I did not transition, I would not have the kind of worldview and personality, character traits that I have right now, you know. And so that realization came with so much freedom to embrace the kind of personality I am and the kind of person that I believe God has designed me to be and how I show up now, you know. So I think that's probably the biggest thing I've learned, man. If you've just transitioned because you're not committing, maybe stop committing. But for some of us, we had to move, and now I'm actually more settled in knowing that I might possibly transition again, you know, and I'm not afraid of that transition. Before I transitioned, not really sure about the transition, but now I'm like, man, there's probably going to be a transition.
Yeah.
So I'm more equipped to tell my wife, tell my close friends, tell my church family, tell my business partners. There's probably going to be a transition that comes. So I'm more confident
Got you.
in that now. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like I said earlier on, you've done so much. You are
Yeah.
a musician. You are a film graduate, right?
Yeah.
I think you did with After.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, After. Rapper.
Yeah.
You are now the host of That Husband podcast.
Yeah.
We'll talk about That Husband.
Yeah.
Which one is this one? What is That Husband? Who's That Husband? You've got a record label,
Yeah.
Citygate Recordings. You're a youth pastor now, young adults.
Yeah.
Pastor, you're in ministry full time.
Sure.
Husband,
Yeah.
father, that alone, full-time job.
That's it. Let's forget everything else.
And just all of this, you've made great content.
Yeah.
You're a filmmaker and
Sure.
all of that. There's so much I can ask about what you've learned, but
Yeah.
to grow throughout your journey,
Yeah.
what have you had to unlearn
Yeah.
to grow?
Yeah. Man, a couple of things. The first one that came to my mind is having to redefine what failure is.
Sure. Oh man,
Yeah.
that happened for me a year ago.
Sure. Sure.
And I credit it to Stephen Bartlett.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, how he defines
Come
failure.
on, man. Yeah.
That he said you've got to fail. You've got to fail repeatedly.
You have to.
Because failing means you are learning, and you are
Yeah.
learning new ways of not doing something.
In fact, he puts systems in his companies for people to fail as quickly as they can, because he says that's how you can experiment.
Yes.
To
Yes.
know what actually works,
Yes, sir.
and what doesn't work.
Yes,
You know
sir.
what I mean?
Yeah, but just continue about
So,
your understanding of failure.
So for me, man, I think, having to redefine what failure is, because for the longest time, any form of at least what the world would define as failure would leave me in a very debilitated state.
Sure.
So man, you didn't make money in this project. That's a failure.
Yeah.
Man, you tried to grow your social media, for example.
And it
Man,
didn't happen.
You didn't. Yeah, that's a failure. You know what I mean? And so I was like, man, who actually put those definitions upon the work that I'm doing, upon myself? Yes, there is a level at which you have to objectively determine whether something is a failure or a success.
Sure.
There's obviously objective matrix that you can use.
Sure.
But then I thought, man, again, going back to the earlier question that you asked about transition, I'm like, man, if I'm on a journey and I'm growing and I'm building something, I can't now define this one trip up as a catastrophic failure.
Of course.
You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, it's probably just a way for me to pivot into something else. Probably we've heard the classic saying. I think it was, who's the dude who created the light bulb, who said I didn't Edison.
Edison, yes.
I didn't fail.
Just discovered new ways of not doing it.
Yeah, like 1,000 ways of not doing this
Yeah.
thing. So for me, that was the thing where it's like, man, you just now you know what not to do.
Sure.
I always say to my wife, having learned that lesson about redefining failure, she'd be like, man, should we go try this restaurant, for example, or should we go to this place? What if it doesn't work? I'm like, then we know.
Then
it
you
didn't
know.
work, right? But we could sit here and speculate.
Sure.
What if it works? What if it doesn't? What if the food sucks? What if
Yeah,
now go? Let the food suck,
Yeah.
and then you can confidently say, "I'm not going back there because the food sucks."
Wow.
So for me, it's having to redefine failure as man. It's part of the process.
Sure.
It's a learning curve, and you have data. Data is important to help you make better decisions as you move forward. You know what I mean? So for me, that's been that. Failure is not fatal. Failure is not the end.
Sure.
But it's just the data collecting experiment or an exercise
Got you.
to help me make better decisions later. Yeah.
Tell me about some relationships you have, man, or had. Pillar relationships,
Yeah.
formative significant relationships. Give me 5 examples. I know it's a lot.
Nah, it's good.
But give me 5 relationships
Yeah.
and what they mean to you, what they've done for you in your whole life. Doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah, so I think a significant one, and I'm probably going to move chronologically here, was my dad. So my dad was in my life first 15 years. Just a hero in many respects: physically present, emotionally present, spiritually present, financially present. At a time where I was growing up in Tembisa, in my immediate community, the only dude growing up with a present dad in all those respects.
Sure.
In my extended family, again, the only dude growing up with a dad who was present in that regard. So I learned so much from him, seeing him love my mom affectionately, publicly, in front of me. I was the only kid for the first 9 years of my life before my sister was born. And so I was like, man, I want to grow up and be like this guy,
Sure.
in
Very
every single respect. And then age 15, just flipped. Till today, I don't know when my dad flipped. Like today, we're sitting like this. The next day, he's left.
That's sudden.
Literally, I went to
you didn't
school.
see it coming?
I didn't see it coming, man. Went to school in the morning, came back 2:30, knocked off, went to my house. There were white people, and my dad was selling the house. In the morning, I left. I put on uniform, had breakfast. Dad, I'll see
Everything
you
was
later.
normal.
Yeah, I'll see you later. Came back home. By the way, we're selling the house. Okay, why? I'll explain. I'm like, man, this dude sold everything, like down to spoons and CDs. You know. So I was like, this is the first time in the 15 years of being with my father where he didn't walk me through a decision that is made.
Did your mom have more information on the decision?
No. In fact,
it was a surprise to everybody?
Yeah, in fact, when I got back, my dad had kicked her out, which again was like, what is this? My parents would, which is probably part of why I'm passionate about marriage now. They involved me so much in their relationship that my grandparents pulled them to the side and said, "Hey, this is probably too much. Like no kid is supposed to be this involved."
Yeah.
And to my parents' defense, I was involved in their marriage age appropriately, so they weren't involving me in things that did not need my concern.
Sure.
But at the age I was at, man, this is how we budget. This is what our 5-year plan is as a family.
Wow.
This is what we're gonna do with money. Man, we don't have money now, and this is what we actually gonna do to help us pivot in this situation.
And you're learning so many things through those conversations.
Tons, bro. Tons. So that's why I'm like, my dad was very significant in my life.
Yeah.
And then I always describe age 15 as, now finally getting into the field and playing. For the first 15 years, I had this coach who was giving me the X and O's. This is how we're gonna play.
Yeah.
Age 15, get into the field. I look to the side, the coach is not there. And I just see everybody saying, "Well, you're gonna have to play the game yourself now, right?" And so I don't take the first 15 years away from him.
Sure.
Since then, we don't have a relationship now. But I don't take that away from him. He was there, present, man. So I could say very significant relationship. Then after him, would have to be Jesus.
Of course.
Yeah, because having to figure out what being a human is, being a man is,
what was life when Jesus found you?
Yeah, so again, because of how anchoring my dad was in my life, I then decided when I got to after my first year that I'm gonna be everything my dad was not. So very warped way of trying to define what manhood is for myself. But again, out of hurt, grieving, I'm like, okay, now I'm in varsity, I have independence. I remember in those first 15 years, me and my parents talking about what independence is going to look like when I get to varsity. And I'm like, again, coach is not here, so I have to figure this thing out myself. And so I was like, okay. Again, kids don't tend to listen to what parents say. Most of the time we remember mostly what our parents have done and how they acted around us. So then I just went to that. My dad doesn't smoke, doesn't drink. First 15 years of my life didn't cheat on my mom. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to drink, I'm going to smoke, I'm going to sleep with anyone who wants to sleep with me. Right? So that's me for the 3 years of my life. At varsity, and I'm just wiling out, man. And just out of pain, you know. And
Yeah.
it's only in hindsight I was like, man, I
Yeah.
was really grieving. So Jesus finds me at that time, you know, just lost, man. I don't know my left from my right. Things are just crazy, you know. So, and in fact, we could probably get into the story later, but
Sure.
there was an incident that happened, and friends ended up in court. I was a witness,
Eey.
and I remember walking back from the Brixton Magistrate Court on the final day of that whole case,
Yeah.
and I was like, if there is a God out there, man, you better find me now, because I think I'm spiraling. I'm supposed to be the golden kid, you know. I finished my matric, never failed,
Yeah,
had
yeah.
good grades, wore my blazer every
Yeah,
single
the
day, even
smart
when
one,
it was
you know,
hot. Yeah, you know, performed well. Man, like, what am I doing at a court? Right? So I'm a witness.
Yeesh.
It's insane.
Wow.
So anyway, he finds me around that time. You know, a friend of mine had given me a hard drive of sermons, and so I was just munching this stuff,
Yeah.
munching it, you know. And eventually, one evening, I heard the gospel for the first time. You know,
Wow.
I was like, man, you know, I've been the king of my own life. I've been trying to define what right and wrong
Yeah.
is. You know, I've set my own agenda, my own life. You know, from birth, I've been rebelling against God. I ran
Yeah.
away from Him,
Yeah.
and I've literally just dethroned Him and put myself in His rightful place, in His throne, and I've been the God of my life. You know, and man, I remember that evening thinking, yeah, this is yeah, I need to change, you know, give my life to Him.
It's dope, man.
And I remember it was probably my third year. I met a group of guys outside a club. We were going to drink, and one of these dudes intercepted us.
Sure.
And so he said to us, man, what are you doing here? I told him, we're gonna get drunk. Okay, what are you gonna do after this? Probably gonna go sleep with a girl. In hindsight, that dude was probably like a fresh Christian, you know. And so he said to me, if you die in the state high, drunk, sleeping with somebody that is not your wife, and Jesus comes back, what would you do? And I love talking, but for the first time, I just didn't have an answer. You know, I'm like, man, I don't. It's not that I don't believe in this Jesus guy or this God guy. If it's true that He does come back, you know, I remember when my dad took me to church. First 15 years, Jesus was the guy, of God, you know. And I'm like, if He comes back, smack, like, what am I gonna do? So that question or lack of answer plagued me until that night when I listened to those sermons, and I was like, oh man, I finally have an answer. If He comes back and I'm in that state, I'm going to hell. You know, and I'm like, yeah, that would be terrible. I don't want to be the king of my life. I want to surrender. You know, so I'm like, man, if you're real, you're true, I'm giving my life to you. You know, so very significant change. That kind of changed everything in my life. You know, so that would be number two. Number three, man, I'll probably lump these guys together. Two guys, a man named Martin Morrison and another man named Karen Fester. You know, I jokingly said in those early days, probably like 10 years ago, that, you know, my black father left me and God gave me two white fathers.
Interesting. Yeah.
These are two white men, totally different worlds. And yet, man, those dudes were like, yeah, man, listen, we gonna walk with you, you know.
Were they much older?
Yeah, significantly older. You know, at that point, I think Karen had been married for just over like 12 years. Martin, was probably like 25 years, 28 years, you know. But those men poured into me, and a couple of other guys around that time, you know. We didn't do marriage counseling, you know, with sitting down with the counselor and having sessions. Instead, I basically lived with this guy. You know, both me and my wife. So I would be with him 24/7, man. Like, he's at work, I'm at work. He's on the phone talking to his wife, I'm sitting in listening to those calls. You know, they're having disagreements, I'm there to see this thing. Again, you know, very appropriately, nothing out of the norm. You know, we're sitting down having dinner with his family, seeing him discipline his kids, seeing him put his kids to sleep, discipling his kids. You know, I remember my wife saying, this is weird, why does this couple want us to be in their house? You know. And it's only like months in that we saw the benefit of that. We had one sit down session for marriage counseling. Was the week before our wedding, but we had a year's worth of seeing marriage being done, in real time. And so till today, man, that dude has a significant place in my life. And then fourth would be a close friend of mine, David Gobedi. Just been a brother. He's been amazing in many respects. But there's one key moment. I remember, struggling with my preaching. So I was in a big church. There's like, at that point, 8 pastors.
Sure.
So it's kind of hard to find your voice.
Yep.
You're different. You're unique. God has called you to have a fresh voice. But then you're like, man, there's guys here who've been doing this thing longer than me. I remember, anyway, fast forward, David says to me, I'm about to go preach. And he says to me, man, if you believe this stuff, we'll believe it,
Wow.
And what he meant by that is, if we know that you believe the Bible,
Yes.
we know that you've prepped,
Yeah.
but just preach like that's true. So don't preach like, man, you're still in the prep room.
Sure.
I remember literally that thing just switched my preaching.
Wow.
From that day, I've never preached the same.
Wow.
Ever.
That's amazing.
And man, I get very emotional even thinking about that moment.
Sure,
So I was
sure.
like, man, that thing just opened. It felt like he twisted my head and said, here's God's gift. Right? Just see it, look at it. Right?
It's a big lesson for us ministers.
Yeah. So he's very significant, man. And then I would say, number 5. I can't think of the last two current now, but yeah. So those would be the guys that have just been significant in my life, man. And
Awesome stuff, man.
and shaped who I am.
Your relationship with your wife has been tested.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming.
It has.
From your own testimonies about it and all of that. Yeah, but if we go back to where it all began, starting out as just friends, and now married, now all of a sudden, that's a significant shift. Can you remember like when it changed, like the way you saw her change? Like, okay, this is my best friend and all of that, but this what's happening now? Like, like what changed? How did it change? And how did you process it? At the time, how did it change, man?
So we were friends for 5 years, just solid. People would come to us and say, "Have you guys thought about dating?"
You met at varsity.
Yeah. So we met the first week of varsity. We're in the same class, and small school. After is a very small school. So we're in this class, and there's probably like 7 of us or 10 at max. So no one knows anyone. So we're awkward. I'm an introvert.
Right.
Contrary to what other people would believe. But when like there's tension, I'm just like, how can we break the tension, man? So I just sparked a conversation with her. She had cool glasses, and I like fashion, so I was like, man, those glasses are dope. Can I have them? We spoke, and then as the week went, we kind of figured out that we friends with, like as we were in varsity, we made friends with other people, and then we kind of shared those friends. Right. So then we all kind of became a circle of friends.
Sure.
And those were the friends that I was with, for the 3 years I was in varsity. So she was part of that friendship circle, and then we kind of developed a tighter friendship within that friendship group. Yeah. So we're just friends, man. Right. I knew her boyfriends. She knew my girlfriends. Hate those dudes till today. We gave each other advice, and so whenever somebody would say, I mean, you guys look cool together, we'd be like, because you're seeing the chemistry that we have as friends, And then, like, I think when a couple of other people said it, like, then the thought of dating just became disgusting. It's like, we're not gonna date. This is weird. Like, it's like somebody saying date your sister. It's like,
Exactly.
man, what are you saying? This
Yeah.
is disgusting, you know? And so we just never entertained the thing.
Sure.
Never crossed our minds ever.
According to your list of a wife at the time, was she your type at
Nah.
that present time? Yeah, yeah.
No way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe looking back, I think she was.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was her.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
right.
looking at her traits, I'm like, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Like, she was right in front
okay,
of you.
okay.
You know, I'm like, dark skin, sure.
Yeah.
Strong-willed, sure.
Okay.
You know, dreamer, definitely. So like everything that I love about my wife, I could say, yeah, those things were there in my list. I just didn't.
Just
Yeah, you're my sister. Like I
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
I mean, I could see you dark skinned, but
You're my sister.
You're my sister, though, whatever. Right? So it was just that, man.
Sure.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't connect the dots.
Sure,
I
sure.
didn't connect it at all. So fast forward to 5 years later. So she's performing at Opikopi, the music festival, and I used to drive her everywhere.
Sure.
You know, so I have a weird obsession with driving. I don't
Okay.
let anyone drive me.
Uh,
You know, and I drive everyone. So
okay.
I just think if somebody's gonna analyze us, I'm gonna analyze us, right? I don't want nobody to analyze me, right? So it's a weird thing. So now we're driving to OP, but she's late. She's supposed to be on stage probably like at 2, and now we get to OP, but there's a long list of cars driving in, you know. So then I'm like, man, I'm from the hood. And I just go on
Yes.
oncoming traffic.
Yeah, yeah.
If we get stopped, just pull out your tag,
That you're an
tell them
artist.
you're performing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So get on oncoming traffic. I'm like dodging cars. People are hooting at me. I like, but we have to get there. And then I see cops at a distance. So then I say to her, it's her in front, and we have the band members at the back.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, guys, we can continue driving on oncoming traffic, or I can get off and drive straight towards the cops. Because then they'll think, why is he driving to
Why
us?
is he so brave?
Yeah, because then I'm like, if we continue here, they might try and stop us. It's going to be a whole argument, whatever. So they're like, okay, just do it.
Yeah.
So I drive straight to the cops, then tell them, listen, we're late. They're like, okay, cool, we'll stop traffic. Anyway, we get in the thing. She gets on stage. She's frantic.
Wow.
Eventually she performs, finishes, and she just catches her breath, you know. The Muffins were going to perform after her. So we're like, man, we had, I think, probably been following the Muffins for like maybe a month or 2
Yeah.
months at that point. So
Yeah.
we're like, man,
Yeah.
they're gonna be here. It's gonna be so cool.
Yeah.
And we like get to see them up close. So now the Muffins get on stage, and if you've been to OP, there's hay everywhere.
Yeah.
It's dust everywhere.
Yeah.
She's allergic.
Ooh.
So now she's like sneezing,
Sneezing.
coughing, and she's like, man, I wish. Which I don't know why she said this, because it was weird as well. She's like, I wish somebody would give me a hug. We've hugged a million times before then, you know. Why would you say I wish somebody would give me a hug?
Yeah, I'm your friend.
Yeah, like you would have just said, hey,
Yeah.
can I just get a hug? Sure, dog, whatever. So when she said that, I just froze. And then I gave her a Holy Spirit hug. You know? For the first
the
time.
Holy Church hug.
Yeah, I was like, what is this, man? So she's standing literally like this, and she's wondering, why is he holding me like this?
yeah.
I'm also like, this is weird. What is
Yeah,
going on? You
yeah.
know? So anyway, we stand there for like 10, 15 minutes
Gee.
watching the Muffins. She has tissue. I'm like, this is strange, man. Anyway, I let go, and then after that, I just couldn't think.
Wow.
Literally, I went blank. I couldn't
Wow.
think. And so then we have to drive, and I'm just like, to her, can't see. You know, she's like, something wrong with your glasses? I'm like, I don't know, man. Again, me who's obsessed with driving, I let her drive. So then she's like, something is totally strange. You know, what is going on?
Yeah.
So the whole time I'm like, man, she feels strange. This feels weird.
Wow.
Like, in the morning we're fine. Now
Now, all
I'm
of a
feeling
sudden, yeah.
this was weird, bro. So then I'm down in my heart. I'm like, man of God, you sinning. Nah, this is
This is not
last.
it.
Yeah, how could maybe you guys have been spending too much time?
man.
You know, boundaries. You should
Yes,
have. She's a
yes,
female. You can't have female
yes,
friends.
yes.
What is
You
this?
did this to yourself.
You
man.
did, yeah, no, I'm like, oh, I'm lusting.
Yeah, yeah.
So then I go home. get home, and then I'm like, man, we need to talk. She's like, let's talk now. I'm like, nah, it's late. Go home. We'll talk. And then I called a friend of mine. I was like, bro, I think like I'm feeling weird things. We need to get together, pray this thing away, or maybe like something is happening.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Anyway, meet with my friend next day, a couple of days later, and she's like, I think that's your wife. I was like, man, that's weird, dog. Again, this whole thing of dating.
Yeah.
But now I couldn't shake the feeling. Because I had at that point been praying for a wife. And then I was like, man, like this is weird, dog. So I was like, okay, let's just pray. Prayed, fasted for like a week or so. After that, I was like, oh man, I think the chick is my wife. So then I call her. I'm like, let's talk. We link up. And she's like, okay, what's up? I'm like, I think we're getting married.
Those were your first words to her?
Don't do it.
Wow.
Don't do it. Do not do it. I had 5 years worth of friendship. If that thing fell apart, we could go back to being friends. Don't
Wow.
do it. Right?
Oh my word. All right.
So I was like, I think you're my wife. And she's like, forget that. Forget that. So the next 5 days became what we've coined in our marriage the conference.
Wow.
So then we sat, we spoke literally the whole day, and then she left, gave me a set of questions. I did my homework. She came, I gave her the homework. We spent another day. Questions, how do you know I'm your wife? Are you sure you love me? If we get married, where are we gonna live? Just
Oh, my
all
word.
the stuff. So she grilled me for 5
So
days.
This thing is moving now. Hey?
Yep. For 5 days straight, and then I think the fourth day she was like, okay, I'll get back to you with an answer. She left. I find out years later that she thought she was going to say yes and would probably break up in 5 days or 5 months.
Jeez.
And so she said yes on a Sunday, and we were engaged, essentially, because I didn't ask her to be my girlfriend. I asked her
Be
to
like
marry
married.
me. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's OP was the shift.
Very interesting.
And the process was me praying with my homies and asking God to help me
wow.
deal with my sin and my lust towards my friend. So, yeah, and then we've been married for 11 years now.
Wow, man.
But she thought we'd break up in 5 days or 5 months, and then recently she told me she thought we'd divorce in 5 years.
Oh, wow. Hey.
So she was in,
Hey.
but she was
But you're
like,
like half
I'm
in.
waiting. My wife, she coined herself a recovering pessimist. So she's a recovering pessimist. She just had a very pessimistic outlook on life.
Has she now confessed maybe that she's dropped that God, that expectation? Is she now? Has she received a new commitment in this? Yeah.
So after 5 years, and I think because year 5 we fell pregnant, then my daughter was born in her 6th year. So I think she was like, okay. And I think I have a very optimistic view on life, and I don't care. I'm very chilled. Like it really takes a lot for me to get angry.
I get you.
So when she was like, man, I'm poking this bear, but he's not moving. I'm like, that's a divine gifting. You can poke all you want, but like I'm here.
Sure.
And I'm committed. And again, it's the guy who spent 15 years with his dad and seeing what commitment looks like. And then I go spend, a couple of other years with these other dudes, and I see how they are in their marriages, and I'm just like, I'm here, man. Like,
That's dope, man.
So
what are some of the things that shocked you about marriage?
the best thing about marriage is the most shocking and the most painful thing: change. So it's beautiful in that, like, I don't think I show up as I am now if I'm not married. I think my marriage has really molded me in ways that I'm showing up more human, I'm more empathetic. I'm more sensitive. I think my understanding towards other people has grown. And not to say that if you're not married, it's not going to happen. I think in God's providence, He just chose to work that in me through marriage. So I think my marriage has made me more human. And that's a beautiful thing because of all the changes. But that's the most painful thing
Wow.
about marriage, because unlike any other relationship that might cause change in your
Yeah.
life, this one exposes you the most,
Yeah, it does.
So at
Yeah.
work, I can be forced to change,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
man,
yeah.
I can still go home.
Yeah.
This one, I'm like, my wife knows my underwear with holes. She knows my smelly socks. She knows my insecurities.
Yes.
She's seen me at my worst. And so now when I'm forced to change and embrace the new person that I'm becoming, there's still a thing that's lingering in the back of my head. Like, I need to fully walk in this new version of me. But man, this one knows all my flaws.
Yes.
She knows the
Yes.
old version.
Yes, yes.
She knows the guy I was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And now she's like, I know that. And I can see the guy that you're supposed to be. And I want this new guy, this new version. But also don't have a big head and think this new guy is more amazing because I have your files. You know what I mean? So it's humbling.
Yes, yes.
But it's like, man, like, it's a good thing, but it's also just such a painful thing, man,
Yeah.
about marriage. And the more I'm married, the more I see it play out,
Sure.
As God sanctifies us, we get closer to Him, we know more of Him. So the holier we become, the more we see how filthy and rotten our hearts are, and so the more I love God, the more I'm like, man, like, I need more of you because I can see how ugly I can be at certain parts. And I think that same thing happens with marriage. The longer I'm married to my wife, the more I love her.
Right.
But it's the more files we both have
Yes,
of each other.
of each other.
Yeah, where I'm
Yeah.
like, man, you remember 3 years ago when I flopped? I love you more now. But man, you remember how ugly I was 2 days ago, So I need to live with that dichotomy. I need to live in that tension. You know what I mean? So that's the beautiful thing, but also the scary thing about marriage, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you struggle at all with nakedness to your wife, being naked to your wife, as in intimate and open and vulnerable and all of that?
No. Again, for us, I think being friends helped quite a lot, man. And let me put a caveat there. I don't advocate for people to this narrative, marry your best friend. Some people become best friends within their marriage, and some people grow to become friends. Like friendship is such a precious thing, man. It needs a lot of work.
Right.
So for us to put a burden on people to marry their best friends, then no one's gonna get married.
Sure.
Because you're gonna have to sit for 5 years and
got you.
So I'm like, we can be friends within, but for us, friendship became a very soft cushion for us to land.
Good.
and help me to be vulnerable.
Sure.
So it wasn't hard. It wasn't hard. And I might also even add here that vulnerability, I believe, is very contextual, and it only should be in a covenant, and can only be in a covenant, in fact, especially for men.
Sure.
Vulnerability is military language in the mind of a man. When you think of any military or any army, if they say we have a vulnerability, that's where the enemy is going to attack. So the general and anyone else would make sure that they're covering that vulnerability so they don't get attacked there.
Wow.
And that's I believe what's in the psyche of a man when we hear the word vulnerability. And so you hear culture say to us, "Yo, men need to be vulnerable," and I'm like, yeah, to their wives, not to you. We can be transparent with the rest of the world, but we're not supposed to be vulnerable with the world, because of vulnerability, again, is my wife knowing all my underwear with holes, knowing when I was ugly, and she can, I'm giving her carte blanche access to use all of that to destroy me, or she can use that to know how she can shield me so that I can become the man that I need to be for her, for my daughter, and the kind of leader that I need to be in public, So she can take those vulnerabilities and use them or destroy me, But I can't be vulnerable with the world. I can be transparent, And so to probably even throw an illustration here, transparency. If a man is a house, transparency is saying, look through the window. You can see all the the furniture. You can see all the objects in the house. Vulnerability says, I'm opening the door, come touch the furniture, So only my wife can touch the wounds. Only my wife can touch my pain points. Only my wife can touch my dreams. But the world shouldn't. And we can't expect men to do that. Can't expect anybody, but I'm speaking particularly for men because I think there's just been the strong push. Men need to be vulnerable. I'm like, I can't be vulnerable with my boss.
Yes.
Can't be vulnerable with society. I definitely have to be. That's why I'm like, it's contextual, and it's the context is covenant.
Sure.
I have to be vulnerable with my wife.
Strong, man.
So it wasn't hard.
Mm.
I think it becomes harder now, because even when you cross the threshold of marriage, there's an invisible line that I think we cross. You suddenly wear this cape or this cloak. I'm a husband, whether you want to or not, but you feel it, like and I think then you become vulnerable, and it's the next moment of vulnerability where you're like, ish, I wonder, how she's gonna think about the last moment or whatever. And so I would even encourage wives to say at that point, like press in, press in when you see that your husband is like, man, I'm struggling with vulnerability now.
Yeah.
Just try and assess how the previous moment of vulnerability was.
Yeah.
Maybe even dial into that and ask about that.
Sure.
Because that will kind of give him leeway to be vulnerable in this new moment now, So
would you say that, using that analogy of the military with vulnerability, would you say then it becomes your spouse's job to cover that vulnerability in that warfare scenario, in that marriage? If they identify it and if you reveal it, they must cover it, and be your defense. That's strong.
Hundreds,
that's strong. That's
yeah,
strong.
hundreds, and that's what marriage is. Like that. It's in those moments where she's covering me that's going to build and solidify our covenant and our oneness. So we say I do, and we say that we've become one at the altar, but it's in the process of being married that you are becoming one. There's always we have to choose oneness. We have to choose oneness, and for oneness to exist and to be expressed, and we have to cover each other. And so the more she becomes vulnerable, I need to protect those vulnerabilities. She needs to protect those. Even sometimes against she has to protect my own vulnerabilities against me. You know what I mean? Like when I've shared something and then she realizes, okay, you said, for example, you struggle with time. I mean, it's a silly example, but I'm not gonna. It's funny enough. A friend of mine was like, I can't stop telling people that I'm late on social media because my next boss is gonna see it. Right?
Yes.
So I know I struggle with time, but just don't put it on social media. So again, silly example. I tell my wife I struggle with time. So then she has to remind me in the moments when she's seeing, man, you slacking here. So that's why I'm saying that. And how she brings that up is her protecting me, against succumbing to my own vulnerabilities and being late, but also the way that she speaks to me protects us as well. So that vulnerability is not taking me down, therefore taking our marriage down. You know what I mean? So
Seems like I've snuck in that podcast interview.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for that.
That's cool, bro. That's chill.
Advise some husbands through your journey about supporting a wife. Could be vice versa, but supporting a wife through mental health.
Yeah, man.
That's not easy.
No, it's hard, bro.
Mental health conditions or challenges.
Yeah, that's hard. And I would even say, first protocol to supporting your wife, you need to get guys around yourself, because you don't realize, that you are. It's my case. My wife was clinically diagnosed with depression. I didn't realize I was as depressed, or not even as, but I was depressed.
Sure. You had a measure of it as well.
Yeah, alongside her, and I think in God's grace, He revealed that to me, because I remember at some point when my wife would say, I'm struggling with depression, I'd say, no, we're struggling with depression. It's our depression, and even that alone was, which we'll probably get to, like some practical key takeaways of how to support your wife. But that was a practical key takeaway of how I supported my wife, because that lifted her energy to fight against this thing.
Wow.
When she was like, oh, Smack, your language has changed. It's not my depression, it's our depression. So even when she would tell people, she'd be like, yeah, we depressed, or we going through mental health challenges.
So she didn't feel alone.
She didn't feel alone. And it was literally just in me changing my language.
Sure.
But I kind of I was depressed with her, So I said it as a way of saying I'm coming around you, I'm supporting you, but in actual reality, in hindsight, I'm like, man, that I was crushed as well,
Sure. Sure.
So I think having a band of brothers around you, first and foremost, because I can't take care of my wife and look after her and support her if I'm flat. So I need to have guys around me who are caring for me. And when you get those guys who care for you, just say to them, they must probably ask more directed questions.
All right.
Don't ask me how I am.
Right.
I'm fine.
Okay.
That's what I'll say.
Eish.
Especially as a guy.
Yeah.
How are you? Man, I'm cool today.
Sharp,
though.
sharp.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
But just
Be more direct.
be more direct, man.
Sure.
How are you coping? That's a more direct question because then I'm forced to tell you what I'm doing.
Sure.
How are you coping? Well, one, maybe I'm not coping. Okay, so if you're not coping and you're struggling, let's talk about that. If you are coping, well, how are you coping? So maybe I'm coping because I'm working. Okay, man, you can't work too much, or maybe this is a season where you should be working and kind of move your attention away from, how burdensome this thing is. How are you coping? Man, I'm drinking all the time because I need to, cope with this thing. Or man, I've started taking meds myself, whatever. Because then we can have practical
deal with it
ways
now.
exactly
Yeah.
of how we can help you before we need to present you as a healthy entity to look after your wife.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
So for me, the first protocol is to get guys around you. Make sure that those guys will care for you. Again, ask very pointed questions, and then to think about how you can journey with your wife. Change your language again, and fight the thing that's innate in you as a man, which is coming up with solutions. It's hard, man.
We always want to just help, give a plan.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Don't, man. Don't. There's gonna be times where a plan is required.
Yeah.
But don't, man. Like
Ish.
just listen.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard.
Just
Listen.
presence.
Yeah. And then, again, in changing your language, ask questions that might reveal how she needs to be helped.
Right.
If she's struggling with mental health challenges, she probably doesn't have capacity to tell you how she's struggling because, she's, just the day is happening upon her, life is happening upon her.
Yeah.
So some of the questions that you might ask might reveal what it is that she is, struggling and where you can plug in and help. And there's going to be other times where you have to kind of press her to get on with life, which is probably the hardest part of this whole journey.
Sure.
Where it's like everything in her wants to sleep.
Yes.
She doesn't want to be social.
Yes.
Obviously, social battery's tanked. There's gonna be times where you're like, okay, you're getting up, you're going. It's not gonna be 10 people. We're just gonna go see 2 people, but you're gonna be with people. I know it's gonna suck, and then what me and my wife have, just generally, we tend to have disclaimers.
Okay.
So disclaimers are code words that we use,
With each other.
that kind of just say, okay, here's what I'm thinking,
Yeah.
right? So in those moments, find a disclaimer, find a code word. You're in a social circle, if she taps on her cup twice, or if she picks up her phone,
Yes.
that's a signal to say, okay, my battery's tanking, and you need to pull her out, and you might have to do stuff like that, and just, okay, you're gonna have to cook.
Sure.
I know you don't want to cook, but man, like at least cook 2 times a week.
Yes.
But you have to get up and cook, So those are gonna be those are harder.
Yeah.
Those are harder when
Yeah.
you have to push her to just human.
Yeah.
Because I think, mental health challenges just tend to, take the humanness out of us, which is hard, and it's hard to see.
It's hard,
to see, bro.
Yeah. Just on that, two things that I want to get from you is reacting in the best way you can to
Yeah.
when her mental health condition hurts you.
Yeah.
It could be anything.
Yeah.
People are going through all kinds of conditions. But let's say the pathology of it, she does something to hurt you.
Yeah.
The one who's trying to support.
Yeah.
The one,
Sure.
the one who's trying to do their best
Yeah.
for her. But
Yeah.
the knives are out against you now.
Yeah.
What do we do, man? What
Yeah.
do we do?
I think it's that oneness conversation.
Yeah.
A friend of mine says, "How do you love your wife when she's victimized you, you know.
Hey.
And that's hard language.
Yeah,
hard
that's rough language, eh?
Yeah,
Rough,
she's
rough.
victimized me. And so I think it goes back to the conversation of oneness. You know, if we depressed, depression is happening to us.
Yeah.
Depression is
Goes
the
back there.
enemy. So unless, again, which is probably like a, you know, a question and a challenge to husbands to introspect, unless you solemnly believe your wife will intentionally go out of her way to mess you up.
Yeah, yeah.
That might be
that's
true.
another story.
Yeah, that might be true. If you have evidence that, man, this chick just intentionally goes out for my neck. Okay, we need a whole other conversation there, right? If that's not the case, then again, just trying to be as objective as possible.
Right.
You know, she's struggling, and this thing is spilling over. It's a bleeding person, and she's bleeding on you. And so then I have to say, like, you know, do I cry over the fact that she bled on me, or do I say, man, we both have blood on us, how do we clean this thing up?
Let's make a plan.
Let's make a plan, right? And so for me, yeah, those situations have helped, or rather, thinking like that kind of mindset has helped in those situations where I was like, okay, I see you freaking out,
Sure.
but it's not you. It's okay. This thing that's happening to us, and you know, throw out a disclaimer. So one of our disclaimers is brutal honesty. So we say that word, or that phrase, brutal honesty, and then it just, brutal honesty says to us, all weapons down.
Okay.
You know, so even if you weren't intentionally trying to hurt me, but in the process, I think what you're saying is hurting. So then let's probably ceasefire, put everything down. Let's talk about why the weapons are out, why they're drawn, and you know what bullets I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Maybe you also feeling bullets. That's why you drew out your weapons, you know, as well. So I think having that kind of conversation really helps. But the last thing I'll say on that is, again, the band of brothers that you have.
Again, yeah.
Go back to them with that, because we can think, you know, macho man, you did feel victimized, right? So don't ignore that.
Yeah.
That thing is there.
Yeah.
You felt hurt.
Otherwise,
She
it builds
did cut you.
resentment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So take it to the brothers. We sorted out the thing. We spoke about it. We kind of, you know, recalibrated and saw what the common enemy is. But man, that thing cut me.
Ish.
It hurt, man, when she said this, when she said this is how I felt.
Yeah.
If you need to cry, let that thing out,
Yeah.
and just, you know, again, dump it on them and just be like, homies, please deal with this thing, but it's out. So when I'm going home, I'm not going home with any seeds of resentment or anything that could be embers that later become flames, you know,
huge fires.
that burn your marriage down. So,
All right. And then the aspect of, how do I put this? Protecting her against others. Because now other people who are less educated about what she's going through, what you two are going through, are not aware or can't interpret certain behaviors and certain words the correct way.
Yeah.
And then now they might think that your wife is nasty. They might think she hates people, she's this and that. Or they might think she's abusing you.
Yeah.
Because there's a dynamic they don't understand.
They don't understand, exactly.
And how do you protect against your family, which is her in-laws, friends, church people, and so on?
Yeah. So I think for us it was just communicating, man. You know, and by God's grace, my family was gracious, although, you know, and which is probably, I think it's less typical now, but you know, my mom, my aunts, when I told them what had happened, you know, first instinct, oh, but why?
Yeah.
You guys are fine, married.
Yeah, young, honeymoon phase. What's great?
Yeah, you know, and I'm from the hood, so you know,
sure.
you know, right? You know, I'm like, so then it's just having to, let me say this way: don't be an advocate or an activist, rather. You know, so I think social media tends to blow up things, and everyone then becomes an activist about every little thing, and now you suddenly become a mental health advocate or an activist. You know, my mother says, but you guys live in the suburbs. Why are you depressed? And now it's gonna be my moment to educate her. You know, and it's like, no, bro. Like, no one is paying you to do this stuff. Just chill.
Okay.
She doesn't understand.
Sure.
You know, you can just tell her, hey, this is what's going on.
Because I think then that's what they need to get the education to say,
Yeah,
hey, this
yeah.
is how it works. This
Yeah,
is
sure.
depression is not sadness.
Yes.
It's this and this. And
Yes,
this.
yes, yes,
So
yes,
you're
yes.
saying don't do that?
No. I'm saying the posture at which you do it. Because a lot of people then tend to come with this posture that this is my opportunity now to, and then you isolate the person
I see.
in the process,
I see.
which then kind of makes them also dig in their heels
I see.
to
I
say,
see.
oh, really, I don't understand this thing.
It's a matter of approach.
It's a matter of
Right,
approach,
right.
So for us, it was just like, and just saying to my family particularly, like, I mean, this is gonna be a long conversation.
Okay.
And by long, I don't mean like in this
Now,
moment.
yeah.
We're just gonna journey, So I'm like, yeah, you can, if you have questions, we could talk about it, but. Yeah, it is what it is,
Sure,
and
sure.
this is where she's at. So trying to describe where she's at now,
Sure.
what she needs now, So I'm like, though, let's not try and understand the thing away. Whether I give you now a thesis on how, what's happening with my wife's mind,
Yeah.
that's not gonna like take the thing away, So let's not try and. I'm not trying to educate you so that my wife's depression could go away. I could sit here and give you a lecture. That thing is not going away. So let me tell you what she needs now, because that thing is not
Yes.
going away, right?
Yes.
And as life happens, we could talk where you have gaps and you have, because another thing is, we tend to become activists or advocates, and yet we also learning the thing
Yeah.
in the process.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm like, man, there's probably going to be questions that you ask me in the journey
yeah.
that awaken me to things that I haven't seen. So that's why I'm like, it's going to be a long journey. Right now, what she needs, she doesn't need you to say, you live in the burbs. She doesn't need that.
Yeah.
She doesn't need you to ask her the questions that you need to ask me about understanding this thing.
Yes.
Right now, she just needs you to just go hang out with her. That's
Just
all.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah, don't even talk about the
Yeah,
thing. She doesn't want to
yeah,
talk about the
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Just hang out. What were you guys talking about? 2 months before
Yeah.
she got the
Yeah.
diagnosis.
Yeah.
You were talking about movies. Go and talk about movies. That's And if she's like, man, I'm tired. I don't want to talk about this thing. Just say, I'll see you tomorrow.
Sure.
That's what she needs now.
Sure.
And I'll tell you in a month's time what she needs. And I'll tell you in a year's time what she needs.
Sure.
But as we talking about her needs and trying to look after her, questions will come up from you. I'll give you answers that I have. If I don't have answers, I'll go do my own research as I'm also learning this thing, and then I'll get back to you. So
Got you.
yeah. So
Yeah.
for me, it was that, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Where can we do better as a church community in general, in as far as what we are talking about, helping those who are facing mental health challenges?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of things. Yeah, the world is broken. Genesis 3 did happen. We live in a fallen world. So sin has affected our minds,
Yeah.
has affected our bodies, etc., etc. So that's true.
Yeah.
And as complex as mental health is, or mental illness or mental challenges are, there's still a whole lot of other research, whole lot of conversations that are still happening around the space. So all of us are kind of learning the stuff, So there's that whole side, and maybe to say to this whole other side that this thing is physiological, might be biological, it's
Sure.
mental, that sometimes there's just no demon. It's just the effects of a fallen
Yes.
and a broken world.
Yes.
So there's no like active demon that's like suppressing my wife. You know what I mean? So
because those are some of the misunderstandings, right?
Yeah.
That it's demonic.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
prayed away.
yeah, exactly. So we either kind of swing the pendulum to one extreme. So it's either demons or it's not. And so I'm saying, well, thing is more complex than that. So there's just the effects of a fallen world, one, and there might not be any like active demonic activity on the thing. But on the flip side, there could be. There could be. On the flip side, because again, like the number one primary job for demons is to cause social havoc.
Yes.
So they know Satan is a defeated foe. They know what their destiny is, and so their thing is again to actively create social chaos.
Sure.
So how
Sure.
could we create social chaos in marriage, in work, in society, in media, wherever the thing is? Just as long as there's chaos, there's darkness, we'll create all of that stuff. So I'm like, there could be that now part of how they trying to create social chaos here is just playing on your mind.
Of course.
So I mean, I've heard of cases where somebody's just like, man, like, I don't feel like I'm tired or whatever the case is, but man, I'm just struggling with my thoughts.
Sure.
You know, and I'm like, there could be a psychological issue, or there could just be demons who are
Yeah.
playing with your thoughts and corrupting your
Yeah.
thoughts, etc., etc. So there could be that. My point is, let's not swing to either pendulum, but let's listen to a case. Let's listen to an individual. What are their current needs?
course.
Where they at? You know,
course.
it's kind of hard to do that on stage.
Yeah, no,
but
it's
that's why I
yeah.
think in community,
Small groups,
Yeah.
that's where such things are dealt with in community.
Yeah,
So church
100.
must prioritize community and not just the big stuff that happens on stage and these big events. But what's the real health of the people there in the ground? Yeah. And then that's where our job gets complicated as pastors, because we have to deal with the nitty-gritties of them.
Yeah.
Which brings us to, man, fast forwarding to March 2024. First episode of That Husband podcast goes out.
Yeah.
Man, what was behind that thought? What's the vision?
Yeah.
Has the vision even changed? I'm asking 3 questions.
That's good,
Has the vision even changed before what it was then to what it is now? Just tell us your heart about That Husband podcast.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So 2 reasons why the podcast started.
Sure.
First 15 years of my life, my dad.
Yeah.
And I did not want other black boys to have my story. And so husbands play a very crucial role.
Yeah.
You know, and they play a very unique role. I speak of them as I'm not a husband. You guys. So we play a very crucial role.
Yes, bro.
And we have a very unique role that we play.
Yeah.
We speak uniquely to men and to fathers, especially if we're husbands that have kids.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a whole lot of stuff that's centered around fatherhood. There's a whole lot of stuff that's centered around manhood.
Sure.
And nobody's speaking to husbands.
Yeah.
Husbands speak to both spaces.
Wow.
You know, in very unique ways.
Sure.
And our level of leadership is turned on 24/7.
Eesh.
You know, so you could run this podcast
Yeah.
and you're a leader here. As soon as cameras go off, you can shut this part of your leadership down.
Yes.
But even as you're sitting here, you can't suppress the fact that you're a husband. So that's turned on. You know, as soon as cameras turn off, that still stays on.
Yeah.
As soon as you walk in your house, it's on. You know, if you're a CEO of, Fortune 500 company, you're a CEO, but you don't stop being a husband.
Yeah.
And you're a husband 24/7.
That role follows you wherever you go, any time of the day.
Yep. You know, and it kind of causes parts of you to awaken that no other form of leadership will. So if I'm a CEO, yes, I need to care for my people, but man, we care more for the bottom line.
Yeah.
We need to do what we
Yeah.
have to do. I care for you, but obviously we're on a mission here. We
Yeah.
have to do stuff with my wife.
Yeah.
Man, I can't treat her like an employee.
Sure.
Things have to slow down. Even if I have the greatest company culture and people are like, man, we'll vote you as number 1 CEO of how you love people.
Yeah.
I can't love my employees the same way I love my
Yeah.
wife.
It's way different.
Totally different, you know. So there's parts of me emotionally that are constantly turned on, that are being challenged all the time, you know. So even in other forms of leadership, if I'm preaching, I'm representing God, representing my wife.
Sure.
You know, so I can't just say stupid things here. Ultimately, because I'm entrusted with the gospel and God is keeping me accountable.
Absolutely.
But then I need to represent my wife, and out of everyone sitting in this congregation, she knows if what I'm saying is true or not. You know, and so there's always a part of me that's open, that's awakened because of that. Mentally, same thing. You know, so again, you know, husbands could speak to single guys, and shape their leadership in ways that. In the kind of stage that they're in singleness, that no other form of leadership could shape them in that way. And we can speak to fathers, especially if we are husbands who have kids who are present, because you could be a father if you don't live with your kids. Man, you're not physically there. So there's a whole lot of other things. The spectrum is quite wide of things that you're missing out on. The level of training, discipling, the level of discipline that you can instill in your kids is not there. But a husband who's a father who's presently at home doing healthy things, because you could be at home present doing rubbish. But if you're doing healthy things, and not perfectly so, but you know you're failing forward and you're trying hard, man, you are shaped in ways that you could help fathers who don't live with their kids, or fathers who are who are not married.
Sure,
You know what I mean?
sure,
So that's again that story of my dad, and then secondly, that husband is Jesus.
Yes.
You know, so
yes.
he's that husband. You know,
Yeah,
he's
yes.
that husband of the church.
All right, so that husband is not a human.
Nah, well, he
Jesus.
is. Yeah, he is the God man.
Yes,
right?
the God
yeah,
man, right.
Yeah. So he's
Wow.
that husband.
Sure.
And so if our husbandhood is gonna matter, or have any significant impact in the world, we have to emulate it after that husband.
It's so rich, man. It's so
Yeah,
rich.
yeah.
Of all the episodes that you've done and guests that you've had,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
one hit you the most? That was like, wow, that
Yeah.
for me, as even the host of this thing,
Yeah,
has
yeah.
just impacted me.
Man,
When it comes to mind.
yeah, that's a bit hard, man. I think the one. So all of them, you know, are significant. There's one. I don't think it hit me more than, but that whole point that I made now on difference between vulnerability and
Right.
transparency.
Yeah.
I did that episode with with Jabuzwane.
Right,
And
right.
and we had that conversation
Sure.
there. That episode, or at least that segment of that
Sure,
episode,
sure.
that part of the conversation, I was like, smack, like this
Amazing.
yeah, like I felt a level of freedom, you know, because for the longest time I was just like, this narrative is weird, like you can't force anyone to be vulnerable. It's just weird that you're forcing people to do, but there's just the strong push.
Sure.
And so when we unpacked it in that episode, I was like, oh smack, like I could see just things coming into place, you know. So
Important distinction there.
yeah. So that's been a thing that, you know, I said we shouldn't be advocates for things, but I'm an advocate of that.
For that one.
Yeah.
And then came about Beans and Bonds.
Yeah.
It was just, is that just the extension of the conversation?
Yeah.
Physically, or
Yeah.
what is that?
It is. So every last Saturday of every month, we have.
Oh, is that frequent? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So we actually on our fourth one now. So every last Saturday of every month, we gather. We try and keep the thing to 200 people.
Okay.
Because we want it to be big enough to try and accommodate as many people as we can, but also small enough that we can all have a conversation.
Right,
you know?
right.
So we've been to conferences or been to spaces where, you know, somebody gives a talk and then we all like waiting with our questions, and at the end, you know, we have a Q&A, and sometimes the Q&A drags and the person doesn't get to all the questions. And so what we've done is we having a live conversation. So I sit with you as a guest,
Sure.
and we have a theme, and so we'll start talking about the thing, but the audience is also giving us questions in real time.
Right.
And so we incorporate those questions into the discussion, and so the whole room is kind of talking. You know?
Sure.
And part of what we do is questions that get asked, the immediate community can vote up a question.
Okay.
So a question gets voted up, and then the question that has the most votes at the end of or at least the last 20 minutes, that person can replace me and then talks to the guest.
Lovely,
you know what I mean?
lovely.
So Beans and Bonds has been that, like we're trying to move our online community.
Physically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's be offline. Let's see each other in person.
Right.
Let's connect. And yeah, I mean the response has been incredible.
Wow.
And I think the most incredible thing about this is there's more men who come to these events. You know, so when we started the podcast, the numbers were skewed, man. You know, it was like 80% women who were watching the stuff,
yes.
and like 20%
And sending it to their husbands.
Yeah,
Hey, look, listen.
And the husbands were like, I don't want to be told anything. Who's this guy? Who are these
What does he
guys?
know?
Yeah, telling me about my marriage, right? And I'm like, I'm not telling you. I'm saying, let's talk, bro. We're all failing forward here. I'm not an expert. My wife is the second editor of our episode, so we have a primary editor. And my wife then does the final edit.
That's good, man. I love the process.
And then I'm like, my wife sees like all the stuff, you know, and this has kind of become like therapy for us.
Sure.
But there's episodes where one either says, man, I didn't know that's what you thought.
Wow.
You know? So that opens up a conversation.
That's another learning thing for
Yeah,
you as well.
so now we talk, and I'm like, yeah, you know, I've been trying to tell you this thing this way, but now that I was sitting with another husband, I could express, I could express it, you know. So that's one side. Or other instances, she's editing the thing, just putting final touches, and she's like, yeah, man, that's not entirely true what you said there, So what you said, I could see the point that you were making, but it's like 80% true. It's not 100% true, So then I'm like, was it my wedding?
Yeah.
Was it, the
Yeah.
language that I used, or
Sure.
maybe my thought process, whatever
Yeah,
the case
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
So she also like just gets to
It's amazing.
see me fail forward
Yeah.
in real time, as I'm engaging with other husbands. So
Mm.
part of my brain that maybe she can't access in our marriage, in other times, is accessed as she's seeing me have
Yeah,
conversations with other men. So
Sure.
so the numbers were that, then they kind of balanced out. So we're sitting at like 40 something, 50 something split.
Gotcha.
But at the live events, man, a lot. We probably at like 70-30, 70%
Yeah.
men, 30% women, which is great. We want to welcome everybody, and part of that is, for the longest time, churches or just society in total, people would have like exclusive sessions for
Yeah.
married people,
Yeah.
and there's reasons for that, and sometimes I think it's warranted, but I think most of the time couples tend to struggle,
Yeah.
because we isolate
Yeah.
married people,
Yeah.
So we go to this conference as married people, hooray, hooray, we get what we get, and then we all go back into our homes.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, so what does Ndumiso do with
Sure.
his wife
Sure.
and the community around him?
Yeah.
He doesn't have a community because he's isolated himself. His single friends don't know what to do
Yep.
with him.
Yep.
His divorced friends don't know what to do with him. And so I'm like, man, you're a woman, you're a man, you old, you young, you divorced, you married, you single, you're aspiring. Come in the room.
Right.
Because if we're going to champion healthy husbands who will then champion healthy marriages, we'll need a lot of people around us who believe in healthy marriages to, really, really champion this and build this together. In fact, our Beans and Bonds that's coming now, the theme is unfiltered accountability.
Wow.
And so we're saying any person who's a stakeholder when it comes to healthy marriages, we want you in the room, because we want to talk to, one, the guy who's married. How do we hold you accountable? Hey, wife, how do we help hold you accountable so that you can promote a healthy husband? But then, single lady, if you get approached by a married man, we want to keep you accountable
Yeah,
to
to
tell
say,
that guy
"Don't go there."
to buzz off, right? Single guy, how do you speak about marriage? Do you have healthy ideas,
Sure.
views of marriage?
Yeah, man.
Before you even act those out,
Sure.
do you have healthy views
Sure.
or ideas about marriage? And how do we keep you accountable if you're going to believe in healthy marriages?
Sure.
So we've opened up the thing, man. It's been, and it's been packed, man. All of them have just been amazing to
Man.
see people
Yeah.
come. Yeah.
I'm not out of questions. I'm out of time.
Yeah.
What would it take for you to go back to music?
Yeah. Jesus would have to ask me that question physically. I'd have to see him like this. I know. You see how you sitting?
Yeah, you have to be sitting
King
here.
Jesus
King Jesus would have to be like
Would have
talking
to
to
be
you.
him and say, "Bro, you need to go back and do music." Right? That's what it would take. Yeah.
Your work is amazing.
Thanks, bro.
I remember Four Sunshines.
Yeah. Thanks.
The
man.
lyrics there were just
Sure.
amazing. Yeah,
Thanks,
the pen
man.
game is dope.
Yeah.
That journey.
Sure.
You've hence said you've closed it. It's
Yeah.
okay. We are still praying about it.
Sure.
We'll leave you. We will. The creator's journey, trying to make things work, and all of that.
Yeah.
What did you learn, during that process? You're still a creative, but
Yeah.
there's music
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
I mean, your creativeness comes through all that
Yes.
you do, even the events, even the podcast,
sure.
even the stuff you do online, your fashion.
Sure.
So as a creative, you never change to, you won't stop being a creative.
Yeah. Yeah.
And creativity is not boxed into one format,
Yeah, man.
but just that music part, of being a creative. What did you learn there during that season?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I learned in that season, which is probably what also made the journey hard, and probably why I won't go back, is the business of creativity.
I see.
Yeah, the business of creativity is more important than we realize. And a lot of creatives get taken advantage of, or a lot of creatives don't actually see their work seeing the day of light, or the light of day rather, because they just not clued up on the business of creativity.
Yeah, man.
And I think creative work needs a whole lot of structure,
Yeah.
needs a whole lot of business acumen.
Yeah. It's a machine.
It has to be. It has to be. Even and so sometimes even that language, somebody thinks, oh, I need like a big team. No. You just need systems.
Yeah.
If you're gonna create, there's a friend of mine who works with visual artists, and he's like, so he tries to bridge the gap between visual artists and buyers, and unknown artists, and he's like, man, he only takes on artists who have kind of built a system around themselves to say whether I'm happy, sad, or whatever. If I'm gonna wake up and paint at 8 o'clock, that's what I'm doing.
Sure.
Like you have a corporate job.
Sure.
I'm gonna do that. At one
It's
o'clock.
your job.
It's my job, right? And I think that's something I learned. I grew a muscle for. I think what I'm doing now is benefiting quite a lot because I in a very brutal way. First had being on the job, learned the business of creativity. I think the podcast and what I'm doing now benefits quite a lot from that.
Really
that was a hard thing I learned there. It was hard to implement, and being precious about my art, which I think a lot of artists struggle with, where you like, man, like I love this thing, and I want people to hear it this way, and then somebody's like, well, that's not marketable. Oh, how could you talk about my art like that? Yeah, if you're making it for yourself in your room,
it's
sure.
fine, yeah.
But if you want to make it for people, just think about how you package it for people. There's people who've thought about CDs. There's people who've thought about streaming. They thought about the packaging of this thing. So you must think of those things as well. How do I get it to people? How do I make sure that in a world where there's 500 million other artists and it's noisy, that somebody could hear my music, because I really care for it and I want it to have a chance.
Sure.
So I think, that's what I learned, and that's what I encourage artists now to do. I'll end here because I talk a lot, but a person who helped me with that was, Eminem, regardless of what we feel about M.
Yeah.
But M gets into studio, they say at 9, at 1:12, he takes his lunch break for an hour.
Okay.
At 4, he leaves. Whether the song is done, whether he leaves.
Proper 9 to 5 structure.
And he'll come back tomorrow. I think it was, what artist was it? Was it Akon or somebody? Anyway, it was like, oh, we need to work. And Eminem was like, cool. If you want to come work, find me at the studio at 9. I'll be there. And this person, I forgot who it was, but they came in at like 11, whatever.
Yeah.
They found him working. Yeah, what's up, blah, blah, blah. And so now they sit there, they start pouring drinks. They're like, okay, we're going to relax, get some inspiration, whatever. At 12, this dude went out with his peanut butter sandwich, sat outside, ate the thing, looked at the birds. 1 o'clock, came back. It was like, cool, do you have the track ready? Yeah, I have it. Okay, like, man, let me start working on my verse. 2 o'clock, whatever the case is, started recording his verse.
Wow.
At 4, he was not finished with his verse.
Sure.
Closed shop. It's like, man, I'll see you.
See you tomorrow.
This dude was like, but aren't we gonna work the whole night? It's like, no, I have kids to go look after. I'm going home. He left, and this is Eminem. You know what I mean? So I'm like, systems, structure, and once your creativity once you know your limitations, you'll have freedom in how you create. You know what I mean? It's the illustration of a park. A kid can only fully enjoy the freedoms that the park offers if there's a fence. If there's no fence, the kid can't enjoy that because you as a parent are going to think there's going to be cars that come in here. There might be, thugs or whatever the case is. But if there's a fence, it's limiting, but the limitation gives the kid enough freedom to enjoy all that the park can offer. So it's the same thing. All these things give me freedom and to be as creative as I can.
No, I love that, man. Man, we could talk all day. There's so much to talk about. Let's look at a part 2 sometime again. You gotta come through. Beans and Bonds, tell us the next date. If you have a date for the next one and the next one, tell us about all of that, man.
So it's every last Saturday of every month.
Sure. Where are they held?
In Midrand. Christchurch, Midrand. That's where they are.
Right.
If you get there, you might think it's a school. You might think it's a church. It's both.
Okay. Right.
So if you get there, you're like, this looks like a church.
Yeah.
It is. If you think it's a school, it is.
Yeah.
So that's where we host them. Corner 9th and 11th in Midrand.
All right. Awesome. And of course, That Husband podcast.
Yeah.
Comes out every Wednesday, right?
Every Wednesday.
Every
yeah.
Wednesday.
11:30. Yeah.
Check it out, 11:30 every Wednesday. That Husband podcast. It is taking the country and the region, let me say, the region by storm.
Sure, thanks, man.
And there's so much awareness now. And what I love about it is changing the narrative. Something beautiful is taking place that
Sure.
people are realizing, man, men are talking.
Yep.
Men are talking now.
Yeah.
Husbands want to be
Yeah.
good husbands,
Yeah.
and husbands have a place to go to now
Yeah.
to have conversations.
Yeah.
So it's really changing the narrative.
Thanks,
And
brother.
thanks for your courage.
I appreciate it, man. And thanks for your work, man.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
bro.
for all the work that you're doing. You
Yeah.
know, like you guys came at a time where like a lot of people were thinking about podcasting.
Yeah.
And I think just to see how much you've pushed and the work that you've put in, man, and just the kind of people that you bring on the pod,
Yeah.
I think gave a lot of us just oomph to,
Sure, man.
to just get
Praise
on
God,
with it. You
praise
know what I
God.
mean? So thanks, man, for
Thanks
the
a lot,
work
bro.
that you're doing, and truly appreciate it, brother.
Awesome. Thank you so
Yeah,
much,
yeah.
bro. Right.
Yeah.
From all of us here at the UnChristian podcast, thank you for being with us. Don't forget to subscribe and join the channel, join the community as well. You can also become a member. The options are all there on YouTube. Thank you. Whatever platform you are using, thank you, thank you, thank you. Wherever you are in the world, God bless you. We'll see you again on the UnChristian podcast.